Welcome to Press Play, the StreetCred Podcast with Elena Krasnow, yours truly, and Jimmy Moock from StreetCred PR. In this podcast, Jimmy and I will welcome industry leaders, journalists, influencers, and friends of the firm to shed some light on who they are and the various twists and turns that led them to where they are today. We're grateful to have you listening in, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Press Play, the StreetCred Podcast. I'm Elena Krasnow, StreetCred's marketing manager, here with my co-host, Jimmy Moock, StreetCred's managing partner. And we are so delighted to have Joe Duran.
First of all, let me interrupt you by saying I call him Jimmy the Moock. Because when I met him, he wasn't this mature guy. He had just started, and I'd say, Jimmy the Moock, and I loved it.
Well, we will certainly accept that rebrand for Jimmy from now until forever.
Okay.
I get that a lot, just so you know. And yes, it does trace back to you, but it's endearing now. So I love it.
It comes from a place of love, I can tell you that.
I know that.
I can feel the love. But this pod is about you, Joe. So let me tell our listeners just a little bit about you in case they don't already know, which seems unlikely. But Joe is the managing partner at Rise Growth Partners, the ultimate growth partner for exceptional advisor firms. He was also the CEO of Centurion Capital Management, sold to GE in 2001, president of GE Private Asset Management, now known as AssetMark, and the founder and CEO of United Capital, which sold to Goldman Sachs for $750 million in 2019. You've also played a really important role in the history of StreetCred through your relationships with Jason.
Hey, you got to add one thing. I was a partner at Goldman for 4 years after, and it was a very important part of my formation. It's something we'll talk about, not Goldman necessarily.
Absolutely.
How it's shaped my thinking about what we do, but yeah.
Joe, you've done too many incredible things to squeeze them all in the bio.
I have to say, the Goldman experience was one of the highlights of my career in some ways.
Well, we're excited to dig into it. And yeah, you've been an incredible cornerstone of StreetCred's, story, given your relationships with Jimmy the Moock and Jason.
He's not the Moock, the Moock. And of course, Jason, who was employee number 2 at United Capital.
He says employee number 1. We've got a fact check issue.
First, so he was the second.
Okay.
We'll take it.
I thought we caught him in a lie there.
No.
I was like, he's been telling that story differently.
Yeah.
Well, the first question we ask every guest, Joe, is what did you have for lunch today?
I just had a rotisserie chicken from the supermarket, best bargain in the world, with some crunchy bread and some spicy chipotle mayonnaise.
Oh, yeah.
And some fresh organic tomatoes. It was amazing.
That sounds delightful.
That actually sounds delicious. As someone who buys a lot of rotisserie chickens, because, I'm always on the move, I've got daughters, and whenever it's dinner time, I'm always in a rush. They're going for about $12 to $13 here on the East Coast. And I'm just wondering real quickly, what's it like?
$16 for the organic one. I remember paying $5 not that long ago, because it's how they'd get you to go to the supermarket. So like everything else, it's inflation like crazy. Yeah.
And you know what else? Not to distract from the conversation at hand, but remember how popular cool Boston markets were?
Oh my God.
And that was
about it. Yeah. Go on.
And you were able to get a rotisserie chicken, but then they brought them to the supermarkets, and now Boston markets are done.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to the show, Joe.
Well, getting into some more, important topics, Joe, we would love, though we know your story well, for our listeners, for you to just share a bit about your background and how you first entered this industry.
Okay, well, I'll give you a quick version of how I got to America, because the accent is from Zimbabwe, which is kind of unusual. I was born in Barcelona, however, so I went to Zimbabwe when I was a young kid. By the time I was 5, I lived in Spain, Portugal, England, South Africa, and ultimately what was Rhodesia. I was there when it became Zimbabwe. And I just want to touch on 2 seminal moments in my life. Because of the accent, people do 2 things that are misnomers. Number 1, I get 20 IQ points I don't deserve, but I've always used that to my benefit. And number 2, they assume I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. Not true. I had a very broken family in the midst of a civil war. I worked since I was 11, had to make every dollar I've ever made my entire life.
Yeah.
And haven't seen my dad since I was 13, thanks to the amount of beatings he'd give me when I was a kid. So I am a very optimistic person, mostly because I had such an awful upbringing that I had no choice.
Some of the best people are, yeah.
Right? And I've actually, when I wrote my second book, that was a common theme that many, many successful business leaders have huge demons that they have to overcome. And the difference between the ones who are happy and not are that they tackle their demons. They get comfortable with their insecurities. We'll talk a lot more about life lessons later. But anyway, I left when I was 18. I grew up watching a show called Dallas. And you're too young to know about it, Elena. And I think I suspect that Jimmy knows about it. But and my mom, when I left, I was 18. I'm like, I'm never coming back to Africa again. She goes, "You're an idiot. You have awful grades. And you're lazy. Like, what do you think you're going to accomplish?" I'm like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And I left. I traveled around the world. I ended up in America, paid for my way through college. Fast forward, I started as an intern at a very small RIA that was timing mutual funds. And I then hated the timing. I got my CFA while I was there, but because of my accent, I was able to do seminars. People would give me their money, even though I didn't deserve to have it. And they timed this. My partner would move money in and out of money market, and I would be wrong 60% of the time, and you'd have to defend sitting in cash. So I'm like, you know what? I want a portfolio that makes bold but not heroic moves. That was one of the lessons. I hope we give people some lessons. One of them is, don't ever do anything that's so exponentially impactful that it could blow up in your face. That's for me. I'm a risk taker, but I manage my risk.
Yeah.
So you have to push
hedging
the
your
envelope,
risk.
but don't push it so far that it might ignite and burn up. So one of the things I said is, look, I don't mind making tilts with a portfolio with 10 to 20% of the portfolio, but I want 80% to just be stagnant. And what I want to do is wrap mutual funds across fund families. So we built our own custodian, traded omnibus at the big custodians, Schwab and Fidelity. We sold that as a service. It was the first TAMP in the country, though that name did not exist at the time. We helped to create that name because we didn't know what to call what we were doing. And then GE acquired that business. We'd done a few acquisitions. I worked for GE. 3 months in, I come home to my wife and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And she said, thank God you've been an ass since the day you sold the company. And, I'd left Zimbabwe with $200. We sold that firm for over $120 million. So it was a substantial amount. Now, we had private equity partners, and I had partners in the business, of course, because I was just an intern when we started. But I had a meaningful stake in the business. My life had changed. I had 2 lovely daughters, and I'm miserable, miserable, because I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I'm 34 years old, and I'm sitting at the Starbucks going, what am I going to do? And I have my 2 daughters. And the only reason I started something is I'm like, I don't want my daughters to think I'm some guy who did something when I was in my early 30s and then just did nothing. And at the time, I thought I had enough money. It turns out I didn't realize how expensive having 3 daughters can be. But
I know.
But my wife was like, I said, what am I going to do? She's like, you're just going to do it again. And I had a 2-year non-compete, which was enforceable. And I decided to write a book, and I went to grad school. So I got some nice degrees from grad schools. However, when I interviewed for that second book, I interviewed 100 entrepreneurs who built and sold companies, males, females, all races from all over the world. And I asked them the same question. They were all in YPO with me, which is an entrepreneurs organization. And I'd say, hey, I'm writing a book about the secrets to building a great company and selling it. And I'm going to start at the end. What does it feel like once you get to the exit? And they all said the same thing. Oh, it was an American dream. It was amazing, etc. And I said, God, I don't feel that way at all. And every single one of them replied the same thing. Me either, but how do you tell anyone? And that was the very first spark of the idea for United Capital, which was, oh my God, there are all these people with all this money. And I said, why? And they would say the same thing that I felt. It's like a death in the family. You've made all these massive sacrifices in this incredible race to win something. Yeah. And then you finish, you've given up your health, you've lost your relationships, you don't have friendships. You make all these sacrifices because you're in this manic race to get it done rather than being thoughtful about what really matters. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, I've seen this 1,000 times with people that they retire. They think that building the biggest pile of money in the world is what it's all about. And then they get to their retirement and they don't have a relationship with their grandkids or their kids, or they're in their
Mm.
fifth marriage and they have no friendships, or they're unhealthy because they think it's a race to collect as much money as possible and
Yeah.
to keep going as fast as you can in the goal of building the big pile.
Right.
But
Which
there's a finish line.
disassociates you from your real life.
That's right. And now
Yeah.
again, I believe very much in the RIA business right now. That is absolutely happening with CEOs right now of most of the large RIAs. They've forgotten what it's about.
Mm.
And almost every advisor listening to this started because they wanted to make a dent in the universe. Yes, they wanted to make money, but it is for people not smart enough to be doctors or lawyers, but who want to influence people's lives.
Yeah.
And I happen to fall very squarely in that group, as do most
Absolutely.
advisors. We're not as technical as a lawyer or a doctor. We probably couldn't get into their schools. That doesn't mean we don't have great skills, because to do what we do requires a lot of EQ, which most doctors and
Totally.
lawyers don't have. So we have a unique combination of skills. However, in that process of living up to what everyone does, and I tend to constantly question everything, I've said, you know what? No one's asking the question of these people. They're building financial plans, and not that many people were even. They're investing their money, but they're not talking about why. They're not really sitting there saying to the client, what's it all about, dude or lady? They're not stepping back and saying, what do you work for? Because what they ultimately answer, by the way, we did this hundreds of thousands of times at United Capital. You know what the number one reason people work for? To spend time with people I care about. Number
Yeah.
one reason. These are
Yeah.
people not taking vacations, not sitting with their families, not going to their kids' sports matches, and hoping that when they have enough money, their grandkids will hang out with them, but they've not invested any of the time necessary. And by the way, it's free to spend time with people you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And yet no one is asking that question. So when we were building United Capital, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing. Money is an emotional category. It's about life and not about money. Money is a destination, and it's money is just a supply. It's like gas. It's fuel, and your life is the thing.
Yeah.
Money is just gas stations along the way. You need to have enough to live the life you want. The more you have, the more choices you have. But it's not about the fuel in your car. It's about the drive and the people in the car
Mm.
with you. And
I
that
love that
simple
analogy.
idea that came from those interviews was the birthing of United Capital. And I have to tell you one thing that is lost with so many of these national firms. They have no soul. There is no soul. It doesn't actually care about why it
Mm-hmm.
exists, other than to make sure that there's a recap 3 years from now for the private equity people to make all their money. It is not about a positive dent in the universe. And how do
Yeah.
we improve our clients' lives? And how do we ensure this is an amazing place for advisors and teammates? They have no soul because everyone's just in it for the gas. And I don't want
So
United Capital to be about that.
you're bringing me back in time right now, because I totally remember two things that you would always tell me back during the United Capital days. You already mentioned one of them. Money is just a fuel to do things that you want. And the other one was happiness is a choice. Do you remember telling me
Oh,
these things?
well, it's the most important quote of my life. I wake up every morning to this quote. That it's from Albert Einstein, by the way. The
Great guy.
most important decision a person can make is whether they live in a kind or hostile universe.
Mm.
And what does that mean? It means you can choose to approach the world with love and think it's happening for you, or you can approach it with fear and as a victim and say it's happening to you. And the simple idea that it's happening for you, you are here as a child of the universe to experience everything it's there to give you. And a
Yeah.
lot of it might be painful, but you need it. And I believe it's happening to me because the universe needs me to have it. And I'm going to approach it with love and learning and growth. Then guess what? Everything is good. Everything is good. even the things that feel bad. And I will say one thing that I teach my daughters all the time. The secret to life is not happiness. And this, by the way, is from Kahneman, who was a professor of mine in behavioral economics. He won the Nobel Prize for economics, although he was a psychologist, which is highly rare. Daniel Kahneman, near the end of his life, never got to complete the book he really wanted to write, although he wrote a couple of articles about this. And I spent time with him at the 25th anniversary of behavioral economics at Cal. And I had lunch with him and had lunch with him subsequently about this topic because it really tickled my fancy. I had already sold, it's right around selling United Capital, so I never got to implement it. But it is shaping our thinking with our partners. And that is, we sacrifice happiness every day for satisfaction. And I said, well, and this concept's very interesting because think about it. You could, every day you wake up, you can choose to do anything. But the things that are good for you never feel good. And the things that feel good are not good for you. I would for lunch have had a cheeseburger and fries and a massive Coke if I could have had anything. And tonight, I would go have a nice martini and a big fat steak, and I might temporarily be happy, but when I go to sleep, I'll not be satisfied. You know what the secret, he believes, to satisfaction is, which is what we all crave, because we all sacrifice happiness for it? Narrowing the gap between who you want to be and who you are. That the people most satisfied have the narrowest gap between this is who I am and this is who shows up. And if you can go every night to sleep, narrowing that gap, I'm a little bit closer to that person I want to be every day. Not because, and by the way, fixed mindset, I'm always the same way. That's not true. But if you wake up every day and say, I'm going to get a little closer to that version of me, I'm going to be a little bit kinder. I'm going to be more patient, be more loving. I'm going to be more successful. Whatever that thing is, take the time to reflect on who do I want to be and what's the gap between that and me. And the problem is, you get to my age, Jimmy, you probably have this with a lot of friends. Some of my closest friends, their lives are upside down. And they're upside down because that gap kept getting wider and wider and wider. They sold their souls along the way. And then the cumulative compounding effect of bad choices that take you away from your soul for your purpose of being ends up being like rate of return. It's exponentially bad. Day after day after day after day, and all of a sudden you have no job, you have no marriage, you don't know what you're doing. You're in your mid-50s wondering what the heck you're doing. What's life about? Because you never stopped to take the time to say, who am I and what do I want? What am I in this planet to do? And what's the best version of me every day? So, again, I tell my daughters, if you just every day, and I have a checklist, they have checklists too, of what does the best version of you look like? How do you feel about that person? And then every night you're like, I screwed up there, did pretty good there, but I can do better tomorrow. That work, which is so easy and so fundamentally important, doesn't get done. And much like what we used to do at United Capital, much how I believe wealth managers need to do, if you're going to earn your fee, it's because you're narrowing the gap between the life your clients want and the one they're currently living. And sometimes you can give them permission to start living that life now. Because a lot of these people who've saved money won't take the permission to go and have a nice trip, but their kids will have no problem doing it. So
that
to
tracks.
me, it's just about what life's about. And so when I look at what's happening in the industry, I'm like, that's what we're here to do. At the end of the day, that's what we're here to do.
Totally.
I feel like I'm taking a step back in time because I heard what you said moments ago about how a lot of firms in today's time lack a soul. And I had the time of my life pitching United Capital because whether it was Paul Sullivan at the New York Times or any industry reporter, being able to tell them about the approach to figuring out how couples think about money and then how they talk about money. So money mind analyzer, and then in honest conversations, they were able to understand the real inherent difference where it was so much it was so much further beyond a 60/40 portfolio and you're going to be okay. And everything that you just said about the person that I am versus the person that I want to be. We had this conversation before, but shit, why didn't you like really sit me down when I was 30 and scream that into my brain?
I
Because
did, but you're a Philly guy. You're an Eagles fan. You don't listen.
all right,
The Eagles are
noted.
always the best team in the world. Jesus. They
Yeah,
have happened
I'm
to be lately.
dying.
But
yeah,
you
yeah.
believe that 20 years ago.
True,
Oh my
true.
gosh. Well, speaking of the past, Joe, you are a huge influence with Street Cred. The tales of Jimmy and Jason's time with you reign in our halls. But from your perspective, like, why have you always prioritized public relations and marketing in each of your different business
Well, let me
adventures?
just tap into one thing for a sec, Elena. One of the
Please.
things I am proudest of in this world, when I am gone and everything I've done doesn't matter, the one thing I am proudest of is I don't think I have ever given anybody in my orbit anything other than my best to help them be the best versions of themselves. And they might hate me for it afterwards. And it sometimes wasn't pretty. But the
Mm,
people like Jimmy and Jason, who literally I feel like are like my brothers, and I feel that way about everybody who I pour my heart and soul into, they actually have done incredible work. And when Jason was working for me initially, by the way, I can't tell you how hard I pushed them to get together because I used to work with Jason.
finally, it worked.
Yeah, and then I mean, it was a multi-year job for me to tell Jason he had all kinds of issues with his first firm that he left. And then Jimmy was like beholden to his old firm. I'm like, you guys have got to get together. Like, I don't know how you do it, but the two of you are made to be together, you know?
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
But interestingly enough, I have always believed two things. Marketing is a joke if you don't have something to say. And number
Hmm.
two, if you don't say it in an interesting way, it doesn't matter. So
Hmm.
I believe I have something to say because I have an opinion about what's good or bad. Not a lot of people might disagree, but I know how to say what I want to say.
For
Now,
sure.
here's what I have seen fail in PR. What fails in PR is when people say, Jimmy, Jason, you guys have done this with Joe Duran, go do it for me. And then they don't want to spend any time thinking about what to say. Or
Hmm.
more importantly, have nothing to say other than say what he said, but say it in my own words, which I spent my life having people take, emulate, outright copy if they want ideas that, again, when I'm as an author, as a writer, as a creator of content, I take a lot of pride. And if I see something that inspires me, like the most recent article I wrote from General McChrystal or Kahneman, I am very thoughtful about making sure they get the credit for the original idea because most ideas are derivatives of somebody else's idea.
Totally.
And PR is only good if you have something interesting to say and an interesting way to say it. And Jason and Jimmy always said, "Hey, tell me what you're trying to say." And they were very good coaches along the way. Of course, they were much younger. I was much younger. We were all figuring it all out. But I also noticed there were very few interesting voices in our industry. They really weren't. Like even today, what's amazing, I was at Goldman for 4.5 years, where I was basically muzzled from being a voice, not because of them, but regulatory
Right.
reasons. And I assumed when I came back, there would be no space for me. Like I just assumed that's it. I'm done. I'm 56, 55, whatever I was, I guess a couple of years ago, 50, just turned 56. I'm like, you know what? It was great, but the seas have closed and the world feels vacuum. There's
Is that
nobody.
fear driven, or what do you
No,
think
no, I
about
just
that?
think nobody's got anything interesting to say and they didn't do it. Like a lot of the founders are gone. You know,
Yeah.
when in the original, I won't call them the golden days because these are the golden days, but I'd say the original founding period of the RIAs, there's a group of us that I consider to be the voices back then in the early 2000s. It was Rudy Adolph. There was Hightower, Elliot Weisbluth. There was
Sure.
Marty Bicknell. There was me. There was just a small group of us building national firms, Ken Fisher, obviously. And then there were a bunch of firms that were following along quickly, but we were the original voices like that were trying to send a message. All of them made their money and left. I didn't care about the money. I like it, but I didn't do it for the money. I did it because I wanted to really change the industry.
Right.
And I don't see anyone stepping in and saying, "Hey, I want to really make an impact." They're all just running what they're running, and no, so little originality. I still see no behavioral economics out there. I still see such consistently boring messaging. There's no difference between one brand and the other. We all do planning and tax prep, and we've been around for
Hmm.
100 years, and we've got great individualized indexing. I'm like, oh my Lord, do you think
So
that clients can tell
homogenized.
the difference? And you'll see the brands we partner with, the first thing we do is say, what's your promise to the marketplace? And let's sing it in a beautiful way. Let's delight clients when they come to our website that they go, this is fresh. It's so interesting how little
Yes.
branding originality is. And if you have those ideas, no better way than PR to get the message out. Because
Totally.
credibility marketing is the only thing that matters. And I'll tell you, when I came back, and this is just to underscore the importance of PR, after 4 years of being gone, not writing for Investment News, not writing for Citywire. By the way, when I left, Investment News was everything. They're still a thing, but Citywire became a big thing that never really existed. And it's I came back and I'd speak to advisors, and they all grew up reading my article in Investment News. They
Yeah.
all remember a speech I'd given at a conference. So many of the young advisors in their 30s in the shadow of the G1s grew up with a message that really resonated for them because I was telling a story no one else was telling that needed to be told. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not taking credit for this. I'm just highlighting the importance of having a brand and constantly living up to that brand. When I came back, I wrote my first article for Citywire and Investment News, and they were the same theme, and the response was instantaneous and, like, frankly, immensely rewarding and exciting for me because, again,
100%.
all you have is the ripples you create behind you. So it was very rewarding, and none of it would have mattered without PR. And now, again, writing is a lonely art. You don't get to see people's reactions. And I love being on stage because then I get to feed off the crowd. It's much more fun. But you can't feed off the crowd if you don't have content. You can't be a leader of a band if you don't have a song to sing. And
Yeah.
most people come to PR and they say, "Hey, I want to be the leader of a band." They're like, "Okay, what's your song?" And it's a very good analogy that I would just, if I'm in your shoes, would say to everyone, "What do you want to sing?" Well, is it jazz or is it blues or is it electronic music? What do you want? And can I hear some of the music? They think it's your job to write the song, craft it, and then have them sing it, even though they don't even know what they're singing. And of course, the
Mm.
reporters are like, I got, like, so what? So what that you've acquired somebody? If you don't give them an interesting line, oh, this is why I'm going to include this story. There's a reason that every time we do something, we have an interesting twist that makes the reporters go, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to care about this. And not
So,
just because Joe Duran did it, but because we've got a great underlying story
Yeah.
about why we're doing it.
I was so thrilled when you and I and Jason we met in your apartment before Rise launched, and we were
Oh.
getting ready to figure out learn about what you were going to be doing, and then how we were going to be able to partner together and support it. And then I was really pumped when I saw that Duran Duran, while it was it was no longer front and center, every article is still there. So even today's G2 advisor can go read some of those posts that you were talking about things ahead. You had a really good finger on the pulse of what was happening at the moment, but you were also talking about what was going to be happening today. In regards to G1 and G2, you were posting earlier today, in fact, on LinkedIn, and I was wondering if you would hit on that a little bit in terms of when it comes to ownership
Now, our
and
industry is in a big dilemma right here. The reason we launched Rise is I really believe that the really interesting high growth firms should never sell entirely to a national brand because all of the equity creation happens in the high organic growth that occurs early on. And you
Mhm.
should hit the bid when you've maxed out or plateaued. which is why we're investing in that category, the $3 to $10 billion fund that we can make into $30 to $50 billion funds. By the way, our first investment at one point used to be called Bleakley, which we rebranded with them. We invested, it was 9 billion or so. That was a year and a month ago. Just crossed $15 billion in assets. They have amazing leadership. They have a great platform, but they didn't have a clear strategy of how to conquer the world. They've been stuck at somewhere between 8 and 9 billion for a few years. Their organic growth has doubled in the time that we're together. They've done acquisitions. Their brand is better. The team is stronger, thanks to the incredible leadership that Andy has. And I would tell you they're having more fun than they ever have. I posted also today some pictures of their Halloween crew that they went mostly as zoo animals. So it was really cool.
Perfect.
But here's the thing. The industry as a whole is becoming more boring and more like the wirehouses that we try to not be like. You go to these large national firms, and now RIAs are suing each other. And there's two reasons people are causing this huge exodus. Number one, because it's a market share race and the private equity guys are just about grow, bring in advisors. Doesn't matter about culture, doesn't matter about integration. Just buy things so we can get our recap 3 years from now and get our three-bagger. And it doesn't matter what happens to their shareholders. And buy people and don't give them stock. Just use leveraged debt. That's the model. That model is awful for G2. Because who the heck's going to serve the clients after the advisors who join get a big check? The G2 that doesn't have any equity is getting paid a salary or a tiny amount of the rev share. And all the PE firms want to do is get to 3 years from now. Now, again, they're not bad people. The PE firms don't have any malintent, but they're not in this to improve the wealth business. They're in this to deliver a return to their investors. So everyone has very honest appraisal. But if you're selling your life's business and you're going to plan to triple or quadruple it, why would you sell it all to a soulless enterprise that is all levered and controlled by a bunch of PE firms that only have one goal: increase my rate of return? It's like going public. It's anathema to a fiduciary firm to be public, because in order to deliver a shareholder return, which you have an obligation to do, you cannot do that and not compromise the client's well-being as a fiduciary. It's why law firms should not be public. It's why accountants struggle to be public. It is very difficult to be a fiduciary as a shareholder and share controller, as well as be a fiduciary to your clients. Totally. Because how do you make more money? You sell them more stuff, which, by the way, is the conflict that large RIAs are mostly under. And again, it's not like these are bad people. It's the nature of the beast. It's how people get rewarded. And it's a question that, again, I'm a lone voice in this. I know without a reservation, in the next 3 to 5 years, some large RIAs are going to be caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and it will look just like it does for the big wirehouses. And I'm going to exclude Goldman from this because I saw how deeply they care about their clients' well-being. But I'm telling you that the reputation that was built at the wirehouses, they are doing now, have just as many controls, just as much right to say that they are fiduciaries as most RIAs. And frankly, for the large mega firms, they're just as focused on shoving everyone into the one model, regardless of the tax consequences. It's not that different than being at Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley. And they're offering planning. The big wirehouses have controls in place, sometimes better than the RIAs, to make sure there's supervision because their risk levels are higher. And I experienced this at Goldman. It was really hard to work with because of the regulation, but they also then had standards that protect clients in ways that many RIAs do not. And again, I'm not saying this because I'm an ally of the wirehouses. I'm pointing out something that we'll absolutely see in the next 3 to 5 years. A couple of these large major firms are going to be caught in a bad circumstance, and it starts by being at war with each other, which you're starting to see now. Because now it was an industry of co-opetition. It was like when the Japanese, you won't have studied this, but I studied economics. When they came to take over the US, the Japanese car makers, they used to compete with each other, and they came up with a term called co-opetition. If we're going to conquer the US car market, we have to have a unified front We have our own cars, we have our own pricing, but let's have a unified message. Our cars are better quality, they're cheaper, and they're more tax efficient. And in the 70s, that was everything US cars were not. And they won. In the 80s, the whole US was focused on how do we beat the Japanese?
Right.
And the RI industry, like every disruptive industry, started the same way. We are going to be cooperative. I was friends with all of those CEOs of those firms, like genuine friends. We cared for each other's well-being. It was a big world, and we were taking on the mighty Goliaths of the wirehouses. Now the mega firms are so big that it's now a war against each other and going after each other and stealing advisors from each other. And we're going to see more lawsuits like we saw with the wirehouses because the underlying money doesn't care. They don't care about the well-being of anyone. They're just like, man, just get me my rate of return.
Yeah.
Because they're doing as fiduciaries what they need to do. So I just think we're in an immensely important inflection point here in the industry. And we're covering way too much stuff about the future, but I do think it's important to think about what does this mean
Totally.
we go forward, because as you're building your RIA, you need to be like aware the big firms have tons of money, they're investing a ton, the broker dealers are better than they've ever been. And by the way, the vast majority of people with 3 to 10 million still have the money at the wirehouses.
Yeah. Well, bringing us back to the past for a minute, Joe. We were chatting with, I think it was Will at some point in the previous weeks, and it occurred to us
He
that
just
you
had
might
his
be
first baby daughter last
first
week.
daughter,
this
second
weekend.
baby.
First,
So
yeah,
exciting.
so exciting.
And she is a
Yeah.
cutie,
Yes,
let me
yeah,
tell you.
yeah.
But he was saying you might be the only person in the world that has sold 2 companies to Dow 30 firms.
Yes.
Centurion to GE, United Capital to Goldman Sachs. And we'd love if you would share just some takeaways or lessons learned from, those experiences.
Look, I think it's true of every. I've had 7 private equity investors, 2 successful exits. I think when we sold to Goldman at the time, I didn't have any say that said sell to GE. My partner Bob, who was chairman of United Capital as well, was like, I got to get out. It was a big check, and he didn't give me the choice. I did not want to sell, but I went along.
That
When
was also in your like misery era, right?
Yeah, right. And when we sold United Capital, 95% of our advisors picked Goldman as the partner. And by the way, 750 was the stated number. There was more money on the back end for our advisors, for which they all accomplished,
Amazing.
which I can't disclose the details of that. But I can say that 95% of them picked to go with Goldman versus the private equity that was a similar price. And so I think whenever I do a transaction, first of all, you have to ask, who am I serving here? I have never been in it for me to get the biggest possible slice. So you have, as a leader, as a business leader, a choice. Am I here to get the biggest slice of pie I can, or am I here to build the biggest pie I can? And I've always believed, for me, I get off on making a big pie and making lots of people get some slice, which we have done successfully. Like, I've created hundreds of millionaires in my life, and that is, maybe they would have gotten there without me, but I know that they got there with me. And that feels really good. And frankly, I get to take that when I die. Like, I don't get to
Yeah.
take the money, but I do get to take that moment. And my wife and anyone who's ever been in touch with me will remember, man, my life is better because of him. When you're doing a deal, the same is true. What did I do it for? And does this signal the end of that voyage? And here's the thing that I see most people when they do a sale, they assume it's the end, but it's sometimes the next beginning. And every transition, and this is the one tip I'll give everyone, when you're going through any major transition in your life, whether it's a divorce, whether it's graduating high school, leaving college, selling a company, you go through 3 phases, and they need to be respected. The first phase is that you have the loss of the thing you were. When you sell, and this is the advantage the second time around, you know what you're going to experience, which is, hey, this marks the end of my founder and CEO of United Capital. It is the death of that thing. And if you don't be honest about what that means to you, you're not going to be objective in your negotiation. So that's the first. The second is the second phase is called the rebirth, like the discovery phase, excuse me. So you have the death and you have the discovery. What is discovery? It's like planting seeds. It's messy. You're toiling the soil. You don't know what the next phase looks like. And it's remarkably messy and disheartening. And I don't know, I'm lost. And by the way, again, any major transition in life, you will have this phase. And it sometimes overlaps the death. And sometimes you want to ignore the death of the thing, but you need to mourn it. You need to celebrate the thing you did and the thing you can no longer do.
Yeah.
Be with it. And then you need to think about what's this next thing, and you won't know. And the universe will start to go. And then you have the rebirth, which is beautiful. The seeds start to come out. And having done this now a few times, I get like in the muck when, and by the way, I was equally depressed when I left Goldman. I loved my whole time at Goldman, not all of it, but most of it. But when I left, I had no time to mourn the loss of United Capital. So I went straight into being partner at Goldman. And I never had the time to celebrate and relish
all
what
that you
we had done,
accomplished.
ever.
Yeah.
I went straight into like rebirth. And I didn't mind it, by the way. I was okay with it. But when I left Goldman, I had two things to like mourn. I'm
Yeah.
no longer the United Capital guy, and I'm no longer the Goldman partner after 4 years. And now I'm just a guy who's had some nice success. And that's messy. But the good news is, having done it a few times, I'm like, well, I know what this looks like. It's messy. And I'm going to get a coach. And I got a Buddhist monk and a psychiatrist. I said, and a group of people.
A great team,
YPOs,
by the way.
an incredible group called the Stegan Institute. And it was about dealing with the messy process of discovery. Because your first half of your life is figuring out what you're here to give the universe and what you're going to get from it. And the second half is filling your soul. And I'm like, what does filling my soul look like? And I get to ask this question all the time, Elena, Jimmy, why do you even do this? And I go, because I love it. Because it's what I'm on this earth to do. And I would do it for free. I feel literally like what I get to do every day, which is make a dent in people's lives, help entrepreneurs build beautiful wealth management firms, be surrounded by amazing people that I cherish coming to work with and laughing with. I would do it for free. Now, I'm not going to do it for free because if nothing else, I'll give it all to charity. And it's how you measure and know that you're of value. That's the thing about money. It is important, but it should be important as a marker of your contribution to the universe. So I've given away.
The drive,
I'm
not the
giving away. They've
gas.
earned it. I only have a quarter of the equity of our business Rise, even though we have all these people that we started it with. And I'm like, I don't care. I care about creating a great work environment where we can be really proud of being incredible partners for the partners that we work with. And it's a privilege to be working with them. And I think we feel like it's a privilege that they have to work with these incredible people at Rise. And when you're in business, when you're doing these sales, you have to remember that every time you have a major event, you got to go through the death, you got to go through the discovery, and then you'll have the rebirth. And you have to give each one respect every part of your life. My last daughter is leaving to college. It's really sad. It's also really beautiful. Jen tells me it's going to be fine. I know that it won't be fine. And after 32 years of marriage, I know that we're going to go have fun. We'll go see some concerts. We'll go to Coachella. And then she will cry like crazy. Oh my God, I want my girls with me. And it'll be beautiful. And it's part of life. And then there'll be another phase when we're visiting her in college and it'll be beautiful. And we'll have grandkids and it'll be a new rebirth, hopefully. So anyway, that's how life is. And I can't imagine we've got more to talk about. I'm sick of hearing myself talk.
Well, we do have some rapid fire questions for you.
We do have a few left for you. So if you weren't working with RIAs, what would you be doing? Like, what was your dream job as a kid or something?
I would have been a rock star,
Let's go.
writer. But I have to tell you what my wife would tell you, and I grew up watching PTL, Praise the Lord, Jimmy Baker and Tammy Faye. I grew up watching that on Sunday mornings because I couldn't believe they could just get people giving them money. And I would have been an amazing televangelist if I was religious enough. But I'm a very spiritual person, and I like to give people something tangible for their money.
Between the Buddhist and psychiatrist.
How are your guitar lessons going? I used to be able to see a
Awful.
guitar in your
I haven't
background.
had any guitar lessons because I'm trying to upgrade my volleyball game, and I have a
All
catch
right.
and release problem. So I'm focusing on improving my setting right now.
So
Okay, so
you never had a dream of playing professional volleyball or rugby or no?
No, no, I'm not good. I don't know where I fit. I was a good captain of a rugby team, but I was never the star athlete. And I played pretty well and hell, musician, no way. I'm just not talented enough. I know what it takes. I know what good looks like, and it's not me.
oh my gosh. Well, what is your favorite thing to do for fun?
Uh, well, number one, I love long meals with my family.
Hmm.
I cook a lot. We always have dinner together. When the girls were young, that's what we always did every single night. And they still will bring their friends home, and I've fed every one of their friends for generation now. And they come and it's like, Dad, my friends want this. And I cook them steak frites
That's
or
amazing.
peri peri chicken or the thing they want. And that is sings to my soul because it's the most giving thing I can do, which is just watch you devour something that I made. And so that's probably one. And then, I love being with people and just having fun. So we go to a lot of Jen and I go to a lot, mostly EDM concerts,
Oh,
which people are
fun.
surprised by,
I
but
love that.
but I love
You should invite Will
watching.
Rubin sometime. He's a
Well,
fan.
I love
Yeah.
watching my wife dance because
Oh,
she's just the same person I fell in love with when she was
that's so sweet.
21 and I was 23. We're like nothing. And I wish to everyone that they could have the relationship that I happen to have with my incredible wife and my amazing daughters, because nothing comes without work. But
That's
I mean,
beautiful,
every
Joe.
inspiration I've had was that woman. Honestly, Jennifer just made me everything I am.
Well, this is a great segue into our last question. So I'm assuming she is one of your answers, but we always close the show with a moment of gratitude and give our guests the opportunity to shout out someone that you admire, whether that be a person in in the industry or in your life.
I've already said something about my wife, so I'm going to talk about a
Check.
country. I want to just say, as a guy from Zimbabwe who had nothing and no possibility of anything, there is no place in this world this Zimbabwean guy could have gone to that would have been given the opportunity where people didn't see who I was, but saw who I believed I was. And I hopefully lived up to that, but only in
Absolutely.
America. So I tell you, anyone who has anything bad to say about this country drives me nuts because I've been in the rest of the world. There's no
Yeah.
place like this. And I kiss the ground every day that I came here with my $200 and spent my first $6 on a hot dog that tasted like garbage at the TWA terminal. And I just went, thank God I'm in America because it never let me down. America's lived up to every promise that I grew up watching on TV. So I owe this country everything, honestly, truly.
Uh, Well, we're so glad to have you in this country. I think you've certainly lived up to everything that you've hoped to do.
All
Yeah,
right,
and
team.
we're really thankful for you spending the time with us, our viewers. I even remember the last hot dog I had with you outside of financial planning in Lower Manhattan. I sense that
Hopefully better than the first hot
you
dog.
might like, yeah, well, you might like to have hot dogs more than you're telling us all about all these healthy food choices, but that's two hot dog mentions in one episode
I
of
know.
Press Play. So,
I'm hungry. I want a hot dog.
You need a little hot dog happiness to balance
Of
out the
course you
greater
do.
satisfaction. Well,
seriously, Joe,
yeah,
thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Of
man.
course, guys. Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Love you guys.
All right,
Love you, Jimmy.
Thanks for
all right,
playing,
man.
Joe.
Be good.
Thank you for listening to Press Play, the StreetCred Podcast. Visit our website at streetcredpr.com and find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Please don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. And if you enjoyed the episode, we'd love nothing more than if you would rate and review the show. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of StreetCred PR. The content has been made available for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you have questions about the show or StreetCred PR, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks again for listening.